Let's take a look at a typical pod document so that we can get an idea of the kinds of things that go in it and how it typically gets formatted. This is the documentation for one of my modules, BW Common. It's just some common utility functions, and this is the source code for it. It's not a very big module, but it has a few different methods in it. And here's the pod documentation for it, starting down here. You see it has head 1 name, and then it has the name of the module and a dash and a short description. This is actually used by the CPAN importer to automatically generate a one-line description for when people do searches in CPAN. And so using this exact format here is a good thing to do if you're ever going to publish your modules. And then there's a synopsis, and this is just typically how you use it. So if we look in the actual pod documentation, how this comes out, you see that those parts look like that. And then we document the methods. And so there's a level 1 header that says methods. And then these are all done with the item commands. We have over4 and item, new, item, bold, comma, number. Some people will use the parentheses. I use the old Unix style. You can do this either way. It's probably more common to use the parentheses. And so comma number returns a comma-fied number. So this just gives a little description of each of these. You'll notice with this one, you see the way that it's wrapped here. When I write it, I tend to put my sentences on separate lines. It makes it easier for me to edit them later. And the Perl pod processor will typically wrap them around and make them look nice. And so that's the way that those look. And all of those are formatted with these item commands. And then we have back and a level 1 header for author, a level 1 header for the copyright, level 1 header for the history. I indent my history so that it will not get formatted, so that it'll be literal, just like with the synopsis. And then I format them really nice. I'll line everything up so that it's easy to look at the history and to see whatever version it is you're looking at, what are the changes. And that's it. Pod documentation is incredibly easy, and if it weren't, people wouldn't document their code as easily. Programmers are notorious for not bothering with documentation, and so the easier you can make it, the more likely it is that the programmers will document, and using pod is so easy that it's actually a pleasure to do. So there's a typical example of how you can create some simple documentation using pod to document your modules.